Folks, we have just invested £7 million into an investment that we are incredibly excited by, and we've committed to investing £43 million more. So what's the deal with this new investment? In this video, we're going to take you on a tour and show you exactly what we've bought, explain our investment thesis, and why we think that pharmacies are the next big thing. In the rest of this video, we're going to explain to you our investment thesis. You'll be hearing from me, you'll also be hearing from Cur8 and the Everest team, and we'll also share with you in practice how the model works visually so you can understand what the pharmacy of the future actually looks like. So folks, we were looking to invest in something that someone could put their long-term money, their pension money into. Something that is defensive, where they're highly unlikely to lose their money, but something at the same time that gave them access to those double-digit returns, 15 to 20%, maybe even a bit more per annum. And crucially, we also wanted something that could scale for our investors, because these days we have tens of millions being invested with us very regularly, and so we need to make sure that we have capacity to be able to absorb that into an investment. And the answer that we came to was pharmacies in the UK. Because with pharmacies, you see 90% plus of the revenue actually comes from the NHS, i.e. the government. You can't get more reliable than that. And the other beautiful thing about pharmacies is that you can't just open up a new pharmacy, you have to buy a pharmacy. So there's always this residual value in any pharmacy that is owned by anyone in this country.
Pharmacy, you can't just open a pharmacy. So, somebody can't open next door to you, somebody can't open in the same area as you. There's no exemptions. There was an exemption that closed several years ago. So now the only way you can get into pharmacy is buy a pharmacy. You can't go out and just open a pharmacy unless you pass the exemption test, which is quite a high bar. There's a new housing development of 10,000 homes, as an example. They may consider a new application. Otherwise, pharmacy is very stable because you can't open a pharmacy.
And then finally, we think that the market is at the point where it's at a trough. And so if we can take advantage of that and buy cheaply, then we will benefit as the market recovers. Cur8, it's great to be here at the pharmacy. So why did you guys go after this pharmacy in particular?
It was a 100-hour pharmacy. We had a 40-hour down the road, so we did a merger and consolidation at this site because they gave us the space to do what we wanted, which was to put consultation rooms in, put automation in, put opticians in, and obviously maximize private services.
It's really interesting. You've got this optician going on within a pharmacy. That's really interesting concept.
It's a unique concept. I think, as far as I know, there's about 3 in the entire country.
Wow. Folks, I'm going to say something pretty uncontroversial. The NHS is broken. In the UK right now, we have a backlog of over 7 million appointments. When the Tories came in a decade ago, that was just under 2 million. So it's got worse and worse and worse. And at the same time, our population has aged as well. And an aging population is more and more a burden on the NHS. On average, the NHS has to grow by 5% every year, as well as, of course, keeping up with all of this backlog as well and the lack of funding. You see, the problem is that hospitals are really expensive to run. And unfortunately, we push a lot of our patients towards hospitals. The average visit in a hospital will cost hundreds of pounds if you just go to the outpatients. Whereas if you go to a GP, that goes down quite dramatically. But even at the GP level, unfortunately, as anyone who has tried to get a GP appointment knows, it's really difficult. There aren't enough GPs and they're really overstretched as well. There are 320 million GP appointments that happen in the UK every single year. But there is a solution to this, and that is by dealing with these appointments as far away from hospitals as possible. But we know that GPs are really overstretched as well, so how do we deal with it? Well, that's where pharmacy comes in. Because according to some studies, up to 30% of the GP appointments that we have these days, where we're dealing with colds or flus or headaches, can actually be dealt very adequately by a pharmacist. And this is not me just making things up. This is a well-known solution. NHS England strongly believes in this. In fact, the government, the new government that's coming in, strongly believes in this as well. And we've seen the model very successful in other countries such as France, where pharmacy sits at the heart of the healthcare model. But the question then arises, okay, Ibrahim, that's wonderful, but we have loads of pharmacies. Why isn't this already solved anyway? You're completely right in raising that question. You see, the problem starts with where we are as a pharmacy industry. There's 12,000 pharmacies, 70% of them are old, they're run down, they don't offer any services, they just do the dispensing of drugs. But unfortunately, the dispensing of drugs is no longer enough because the NHS budgets have tightened over time and the margins are wafer thin. And so pharmacies that just do the dispensing of drugs are really struggling. And that means that they're just on this hamster wheel where they can't get off it to be able to change their entire model that needs to change for the future.
These pharmacies that are out there, the ones that are independent, probably close to 70% of those have not at all adapted to change. Ultimately, they will not survive because their methodologies, their model are not fit for purpose.
So where is the future going? Well, the future is going towards services. So you know when you go into a pharmacy, you can see consultation rooms now, often in a pharmacy. That is the future. Because when you sell a paracetamol, you might make a few pence of profit. That's not really the future of pharmacy. But if you have a consultation, you might make 10, 15, 20, 25 pounds worth of profit just on that consultation. And because there aren't any costs, because you've not had to buy in any drugs for that, it's just your time, it's high margin stuff. And so what pharmacies need to be doing is freeing up the time of their pharmacists and their staff to be able to do more services work.
Pharmacies are located in the best of locations on the high street. And in every pharmacy, there is a healthcare professional. Somebody who's spent 5 years at university studying pharmacy and medicine modules. So they're very highly skilled individuals. There's less and less of a requirement for the pharmacist just to stand there and check medications. That is now being done more and more by automation, by AI, by utilizing the skill set a pharmacist has.
But the question then arises, why aren't people doing that? Well, the reason is because in pharmacy right now, there is a ton of work that is done, because at the back of a pharmacy, you're effectively running an Amazon warehouse. It's a fulfillment center. Drugs are coming in, drugs are going out. But all of that can be automated enormously, saving a huge amount of time. And once you get that time back, then you can invest it into other things. The problem is that to invest in automation and robotics is something that you need a skill set for, experience in, and crucially, you need money. And that's where we come in.
We've had this robot installed, which is capable of holding about 15,000 packs in there. What that obviously gives us is speed, accuracy, and ultimately leads to patient safety. One of the reasons we've got it is it's a very busy branch. We're in the top 10 branches in dispensing figures in Greater Manchester.
Wow.
90% of the stock goes in there. You know, with the robot, it's all scanned in by 3D barcode. Very efficient, very safe. So these are the chutes coming from the robot. So they label everything here. It's dispensed at this terminal and it comes down the chute from the robot.
And normally what would happen is what?
The dispensers would have to go onto the shelves, pick the items, put it in a basket, stick the label on and put it on the pharmacist's bench to check. Here, they're just standing here, everything's coming out to them.
Right,
so
and it's so much quicker because they don't have to search for it.
Yeah. By the time they've finished sticking the labels on, the second item's already here.
Alhamdulillah, we've been very lucky to partner with Everest, who are seen as trailblazers within the NHS England setup. They were one of the top 10 COVID vaccine providers in the country, and actually the first pharmacy that NHS England agreed to let them offer the COVID vaccines through. And they've done a number of other cutting edge delivery of services in the past decade. And so Everest, their model is all about efficiencies and unlocking that time from the staff in a pharmacy. The first thing that you do is that you use a hub and spoke model. Immediately, that unlocks efficiencies. The second thing that you do is you use robots. Again, that unlocks efficiencies and frees up staff to be able to do other things. And then thirdly, you make sure that your staff are highly trained in offering high value services, both NHS services and also private services. And that way you can really make sure that the margins in the business are also going up as well.
This is the hub. This is where we do central production for all the blister packs for all the branches. So we invested in this machine because this is the most manual intensive process in a pharmacy, making blister packs.
So blister packs are used by elderly patients primarily, right? Yeah. Because it controls what drugs they get when.
It's proven by many studies that blister packs help adherence and compliance. you're more likely to take your medicine at the right time if it's in a blister pack, because it tells you morning, afternoon, tea time, night time.
And before, pharmacists used to do this, what, by hand?
Yeah,
Are you serious?
yeah. And it was always very, very messy. So what you'd have is blister packs everywhere, drugs everywhere. You'd get a pack of 28 tablets, you'd pop it out, put it into a blister pack, and then do that for every item.
Wow.
And as you can see, this is one thing that we invested in quite early on, because we found that it saves a lot of man hours.
And how many blister packs can this thing do?
Patients have 4 blister packs a month.
Yeah.
So the capacity of this is about 1,700 patients.
Right.
We're on about 1,900, so we're over capacity.
Right.
You'd have 2 people in a typical pharmacy, at the very least 1.5 labour resources doing blister packs. We've completely eliminated the need for that role in a branch. The blister packs are produced centrally and sent to the branches. So the role that required 1.5 resource has been eliminated because of effective use of automation.
So you've seen how the Everest model works, and you've seen where pharmacy is right now and where it could be. So what is our business game plan? So our business model is really simple. Buy these pharmacies for cheap, roll out these improvements on top of them, and then sell them for a more expensive price in a few years' time. It's really as simple as that. And throughout this entire period, the beauty of it is that we are buying profitable businesses from day one, and we're making them more and more profitable as well. So the element of risk associated with buying a loss-making entity goes off the table.
Our investment strategy is very clear. We have absolute clarity in it. We go into, we find the right branches, we find the right location, we find the right type of businesses. Those businesses that have had no care, they are in sort of a distressed situation, both financially and also from a service offering. So our strategy is, look, go in there, freshen it up, put in positive colours. There are colours within the NHS recommends, which help improve patient outcomes, generally make you feel better. Bright colours, well-lit pharmacies, clean. These are things that are part of our investment strategy. Then introduce automation, and with automation, it's not just about, okay, we've got automation, it's what happens as a result of that automation. It creates mental space. It frees people up. When you free people up, then you can introduce the services. We have been doing this for a long time, and we've been very successful at it, which is we free the staff and pharmacists up. We create the mental space so that they can come into the consultation room and provide services. The funding model that's been agreed by the government is, when we dispense something, we will get paid for it at an agreed rate from the government. And that's based upon something called a drug tariff, which dictates how much we get per item. Anything backed by His Majesty's government is generally regarded as secure. So as long as you adhere to the basic principles of the contract, you ensure patient safety, you ensure you're compliant with governance, the governance framework and governance requirements, it's a safe, secure, stable business to have invested in.
And to be clear, this is not to be confused with Cur8's VC investments. Our typical VC investment is in a loss-making early-stage technology company where we're putting in £200,000 with the hope that it's going to become a huge company in the future. This is investing in a very profitable, solid, dependable business that has a clear way of making money. We're going to be investing millions of pounds into it. As I said, 7 million has already gone in, and a further 43 million is going to go in. And we are hiring someone specifically to look after this investment from the Cur8 side as well, given the amounts of money that we're putting into it. And we are regularly catching up with the Everest team to make sure that the execution is correct. So this is very much what we call our private equity strategy.
The most important question for the investor is, my money safe, first and foremost. And then it's obviously return on investment. So I think in terms of, is your money safe? Absolutely. It's a closed environment. No new contracts can be given. No new pharmacies can be open next door to an existing pharmacy. This level of secured investment is very, very rare. What else helps in the security of my investment is that it's backed by the government. A new Labour government who looks at things with a different perspective, and also already said, look, we need to take funding. There is no new funding, but we're going to take funding out from hospitals and put it into primary care, because we feel that primary care is where the real benefit is. So if we can treat people in primary care, we can prevent them going into hospital, which costs us as a nation a lot more. Very recently, for the first time ever in the history of pharmacy, the government announced that patients can visit pharmacies for 7 conditions, minor conditions, that traditionally they would have had to visit a GP. Now they can visit a pharmacy and the pharmacist would prescribe for them prescription-only medications, which has never happened before. The government has committed £800 million into pharmacy for this new service called the Pharmacy First. It's live. It went live several months ago. During the elections, Rishi Sunak promised to expand this service because the initial feedback that they've had of this service, that it's a game changer. It's very, very clear as an investor that you're putting your money into something that is safe, has the potential to give you really, really good returns. Because as we've discussed before, you've got a team that are very experienced, a team that know what they're doing, a team that will implement their vision from day one, and a team that will ensure that when it comes to exit, we've increased the profitability of them businesses, that we can get the best returns for our investors.
Folks, I can't tell you how genuinely excited I am about this opportunity, because I feel this is us as a Muslim community actually contributing to wider society in helping solve a really big issue, but at the same time doing it in a way that's commercially viable and actually makes a lot of profit and a lot of sense. I personally will be investing into this investment very regularly because I see this as a great investment to be part of my retirement plan. I have a long-term mindset about this and I'm really excited to see how this investment progresses. So folks, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you want to jump on board, then you can check it out on Cur8 Capital. And if you'd like to see more deep dive analyses of investments that we've made from our own pockets, then let us know in the comments below. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.